The cinnamon rolls need 5 more minutes. I slide the tray into the warm belly of the industrial oven and set the timer, watching golden morning light spread across the worn wooden floors of Delilah's oven. 1 year. 1 full year since I signed those papers and breathed life back into my father's legacy. The thought brings a smile to my face as I wipe flour-covered hands on my apron. My phone buzzes on the counter. Carson's name appears on the screen. Strange for 5:30 a.m. My brother hasn't called in months. I tap the message open, expecting birthday wishes for the bakery's revival anniversary. I'm coming home to take over the bakery. You've done enough playing business owner. My hands tremble so violently I nearly drop the second tray of rolls. The corner catches against the hot oven rack, searing a red line across my palm. Pain shoots up my arm, but I barely register it. Eyes fixed on those 11 words glowing on my screen. The burn throbs in time with my racing pulse. 1 year of 18-hour days. 1 year of missed rent payments on my apartment to cover payroll. 1 year of turning this place from a failing memory into a thriving business. And Carson thinks he can text his way back into ownership? I set the tray down, run cold water over the angry welt forming on my palm, and stare at the message again. The bakery's gentle morning quiet suddenly feels like the calm before a storm. Last February flashes through my mind. Dad's funeral. Somber faces gathered in the attorney's wood-paneled office. The collective inhale when Mr. Hendricks announced that Dad had left no specific instructions for Delilah's oven. Everyone turned toward Carson's empty chair. The golden child who'd fled to Seattle 6 years ago to find himself, while Dad worked himself into an early grave. It's underwater, Sable. Mom had whispered later that evening, shoulders curved with defeat as she spread bank statements across my kitchen table. Tax liens, equipment failing. Your father was too proud to tell anyone. The numbers blurred before my eyes, $68,000 in debt. The family legacy 2 payments away from foreclosure. 3 days later, I stood in that same attorney's office, emptying my savings account and signing loan papers that made me physically sick with fear. Mom watched with uncertainty as I signed the final document making me the official owner of Delilah's Oven Bakery. You sure about this, honey? Carson might want. Carson isn't here, I'd said, pressing the pen so hard into the paper it nearly tore. I am. The timer dings, yanking me back to the present. I pull out the perfectly browned cinnamon rolls, their scent filling the kitchen with memories of Saturday mornings at Dad's side. The business is mine. The recipes are mine. The debt was mine. And now, the success is mine too. I pick up my phone and call Carson directly. He answers on the second ring, sounding entirely too cheerful. Morning, sis. Got my message, huh? Listen, I can be there by the weekend to start the transition. I've got some great ideas too. The bakery is legally mine, I interrupt, my voice steadier than I feel. I bought it, rebuilt it, and saved our family legacy that you abandoned. Silence stretches between us. Then Carson laughs, the sound grating against my ear. A few signatures don't change blood. Dad always meant for me to run it. You're just keeping my seat warm. The casual dismissal in his voice ignites something in my chest. My shoulders straighten as I stare at the morning's first batch of bread dough, waiting to be shaped. We both know that's not true. I end the call without another word, set my phone face down on the counter, and plunge my hands into the dough with newfound determination. 10 minutes later, my phone rings again. Mom's name flashes on the screen. Of course. Sable, honey, she begins, voice gentle in that way that always precedes unwelcome advice. Carson just called. He's upset. I imagine he is. He says you were rude to him. I press the heel of my hand into the dough, ignoring the sting from my burn. Was he rude when he texted me that he's taking over the business I own? Mom sighs. You know your brother. He's impulsive, but maybe you could consider his perspective? Maybe you both could share management? He has that business degree after all. The words land like a slap. After everything, the loans, the 70-hour weeks, the nights I slept on the office couch to save money, she still sees me as temporary. Dad's placeholder until the prodigal son returns. Mom, I have to go. Customers will be here soon. I hang up and stare at the trays of pastries I've prepared since 4 a.m. Everything I've built could slip through my fingers if Carson convinces the family I'm just playing at being a business owner. The burn on my palm throbs, a physical reminder of what I've sacrificed while Carson built his resume in Seattle. This bakery isn't just my livelihood. It's become my identity, the woman who saved Delilah's oven when everyone else had given up. and no one, not even blood, is going to take that from me. 3 days later, I should be piping icing onto morning buns. Instead, I'm frozen in my cramped office chair, staring at an email thread I was never meant to see. 3 months ago, while I was taking out a second loan to replace our ancient mixer, Carson was already planning his grand return. Not to save our family legacy, but to sell it to the highest bidder. As discussed, once I assume control of Delilah's oven, we can move forward with acquisition plans. Carson wrote to someone at National Bread Company. The transition should be seamless. My stomach lurches. I lean against the wall, breath coming in shallow bursts as I scroll through more messages. Phrases jump out like slaps. Replace current staff with trained corporate team members, and standardize recipes for consistency across locations. The final blow comes in an attached document. A press release draft dated tomorrow announcing Carson's return to save the struggling family business. The business whose revenue I've tripled in 12 months. Sable? Sable. Marcus calls from the kitchen. Your brother's here. With your mom. I tuck my tablet into a drawer and straighten my flour-dusted apron. The burn on my palm throbs as I clench my fists. In the kitchen, Carson stands tall in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than our monthly flour budget. Mom hovers at his elbow, her eyes darting between us, already playing peacemaker before a word is spoken. There she is. Carson says with practiced warmth that doesn't reach his eyes, the baker extraordinaire. What are you doing here, Carson? I keep my voice even, aware of Marcus pretending not to listen while he shapes sourdough loaves. Just getting the lay of the land before my investor meeting tomorrow. Carson runs a finger along the butcher block counter, inspecting it for dust. Some promising opportunities for expansion. Expansion? I echo. Of my bakery? Our bakery, Mom corrects gently. Family business. The bakery I purchased, with legal documents and everything. I turn to Mom. How did he get in before opening hours? Mom's gaze drops to the floor. I might have made him a copy of my key. The betrayal stings worse than yesterday's burn. You had no right. I've been talking with some of your staff, Carson interrupts, as if I hadn't spoken, getting their input on my vision. Most seem excited about the changes. Marcus's hands pause briefly over the dough before continuing their work, his shoulders tense. Carson reaches into his leather messenger bag and pulls out my ledger, the one I keep in the locked cabinet beside the register. Dad's recipes with some Instagram filters don't make you a businesswoman, Sable. You went through my financial records? Heat rises in my chest, making it hard to breathe. Someone had to. He flips through pages with casual disregard. You're one bad month away from collapse. That's not true. My voice rises despite my efforts to stay calm. We're profitable now. We've been profitable for months. Only because you're paying yourself poverty wages, Carson counters. Hardly sustainable. Mom steps between us, hands raised. Let's all take a breath, shall we? Carson has some wonderful ideas that could benefit everyone. Like selling to National Bread Company? The words escape before I can stop them. Carson's smile falters, just for a moment. You've been snooping. In my own email, which you apparently accessed without permission. I was helping Mom set up her new phone. He waves dismissively. Those messages were sent to your shared business account. The $68,000 of my savings. The additional loan that keeps me awake at night. The inheritance I saved while he built his resume in Seattle. All of it hanging by a thread because my brother wants to cash in. I've scheduled a staff meeting tomorrow, Carson announces. I'll be outlining some exciting changes. You can't do that, I say, but my voice lacks conviction. Someone from National Bread will be joining us. Carson tucks my ledger back into his bag, just to observe. Marcus has stopped pretending not to listen, his eyes meeting mine with concern. Honey, Mom says, laying a gentle hand on my arm. Maybe this is for the best. You could handle the baking side, while Carson manages the business aspects. He does have that MBA after all. The bell above the front door chimes, signaling our first customer. I step away from Mom's touch, wiping flour from my hands with mechanical precision. I should get those cinnamon rolls out of the oven, I say, moving toward the kitchen. Don't worry about the staff meeting, Carson calls after me. I've got it covered. Eleanor Winthrop, our first customer every Tuesday for 30 years, peers around Carson's shoulder. Her keen eyes take in the tension, Carson's suit, my flushed face. Morning, Sable dear, she announces loudly. I hope those are your cinnamon rolls in the oven. I don't come here for corporate nonsense. I come for Sable Harrington's baking. The small victory in Eleanor's words gives me just enough strength to make it through the morning rush. But as I lock up that night, watching Carson drive away in his leased luxury car, I wonder if I should confront him publicly at his staff meeting, or prepare a more calculated response with my legal documents. Making a scene might feel satisfying, but would it actually protect what I'd built? What would you do when someone tries to take credit for your hard work and sacrifice? The notification pops up on my phone screen as I'm measuring flour for tomorrow's sourdough. Carson's smiling face stares back at me from our bakery's Instagram account, my bakery's account. Thrilled to announce my return as CEO of Delilah's Oven. Stay tuned for exciting new directions as I continue my father's legacy. Flour billows up as my fist tightens around the measuring cup. The burn on my palm throbs with renewed pain. Within minutes, my phone buzzes with messages from confused customers. Are you leaving, Sable? What's this about new management? Is something happening to the bakery? I'm still composing careful responses when Marjorie from Asheville Business Monthly calls. I'd love to interview you and your brother about the prodigal son's triumphant return to save the family business. She chirps. My teeth grind so hard I taste enamel dust. There's been a misunderstanding, I say, but Carson has already scheduled the interview for tomorrow. When I arrive before dawn the next morning, the bakery floor has been transformed. The vintage display cases Dad restored now crowd the back wall. The community bulletin board where locals post flyers has vanished. In its place stands a sleek digital menu board still blank, but ominous in its modernity. Needed to clear floor space, Carson says, appearing from the office with a coffee I didn't make him. Customers get confused with too many focal points. Those focal points built this community, I say, but he's already scrolling through his phone, dismissing me with a wave. By noon, I can't access the register system. Change the passwords, Carson explains when I confront him. Security updates. I'll email you the new ones later. He doesn't. That night, I spread my purchase agreement across my kitchen table, searching for loopholes I might have missed. Did Dad leave some clause I overlooked? Some family provision that supersedes my investment? The legal language blurs as exhaustion sets in. The next morning, I start taking photos of everything: the rearranged floor, the locked register screen, the new vendor order forms Carson has left on my desk. I document each change in a notebook, meticulous as a crime scene investigator. The staff tiptoes around us both. Molly from the front counter keeps glancing between us when we give contradicting instructions about the day's special display. Marcus, my head baker, purses his lips when Carson suggests we could streamline production by ordering pre-made croissant dough. Who's actually in charge here? My head baker croissant dough. Molly finally asks during a particularly tense standoff over whether to offer samples of our new lemon scones. I am. We answer simultaneously. Later, I overhear Carson on the phone with Walter, our flour supplier for 20 years. We should discuss pricing, Carson says. My sister's been overpaying for basic ingredients. I have connections with larger distributors who can cut those costs by 30%. Walter has driven his delivery truck from his family mill every Tuesday for decades. He taught me to recognize quality flour by the feel between my fingers when I was 8. That night, I sleep at the bakery, curled on the small couch in the office. The thought of Carson renegotiating the relationships I've carefully maintained keeps me awake until the early morning prep time. When I drag myself to the kitchen to start the day's first batch, I notice my recipe book open on the counter. A folded note sits between pages of my cinnamon roll recipe. Some people inherit a legacy, others earn it. We're with you, boss. Below Marcus's neat handwriting, every employee has signed their name. Something warm unfurls in my chest, stronger than the burn on my palm. I'm elbow deep in dough when Carson strolls in at 6, freshly showered and dressed in another crisp button-down that would be splattered with flour in minutes if he actually baked anything. We need to talk about the farmer's market schedule, he says, leaning against the counter where I work. I'm thinking we scale back. Too much effort for minimal return. The farmer's market was my first expansion after taking over the place where we gained 50 new regular customers and found our organic egg supplier. Not happening, I say, continuing to knead. This isn't personal, Sable. It's business. His voice softens with practiced sincerity. You did good keeping it afloat, but Dad always wanted me to have this. We both know that. My hands never stop working the dough as I look up at him. Dad's wishes died with him. What matters are my actions, my investment, and my legal ownership. For the first time, the words feel completely true. I don't need Dad's ghostly approval or Mom's validation. The bakery is mine because I saved it. Period. Carson's face hardens. I can make this ugly. I'll tell every vendor and customer how you pushed out family, how you betrayed Dad's memory. K. I fold the dough with steady hands, the rhythm unbroken. Threats don't rise like good bread, Carson. The next morning, Marcus arrives 30 minutes early. Then Molly. Then everyone else. They quietly prepare for the farmer's market while Carson sleeps in, unaware I've adjusted his new schedule in the staff room. The sourdough loaves are selling twice as fast since you changed the hydration ratio, Marcus tells me as we load the van. The old way was good. This is better. Meanwhile, Mom still hasn't returned my calls since I refused Carson's compromise. Walter's delivery truck rumbles up as we're finishing. He hands me the invoice directly. Your brother called again. Wanted me to change our arrangement, he says, hefting a bag of specialty flour. Told him I don't do business with people whose hands are softer than my pillowcase. That afternoon, I compile everything into a folder, the purchase agreement, before and after financial statements, showing the bakery's transformation from near bankruptcy to profitability, tax filings that bear only my signature. I call Heather Jenkins, the notary who witnessed my purchase and sits on the town business council. Carson's holding a staff meeting tomorrow. I tell her, I think it's time everyone understood exactly who owns Delilah's oven. The next day, I walk into the bakery carrying my folder. Carson stands at the front, gesturing broadly to a room I expected to hold only staff. Instead, it's filled with regular customers, local vendors, and even Marjorie from the business magazine. I tuck the folder firmly under my arm and step forward. I stand at the back of the bakery as Carson finishes his speech, my leather folder clutched against my chest like armor. The room buzzes with whispers, packed with more than just my staff. Regular customers fill every chair, their curious eyes darting between my brother and me. So as you can see, Carson says, flashing that practiced smile he uses at networking events, I'm excited to return and guide Delilah's oven into its next chapter. My business degree and connections will elevate what my sister has maintained. Maintained. The word lands like a slap, as if I've been a glorified housekeeper rather than the owner who dragged this place back from financial ruin. I step forward, my burn mark throbbing beneath the bandage as I set my folder on the center table. Making eye contact with each person present, I draw out the documents one by one. Before we discuss future plans, I say, my voice steadier than I expected, I'd like to clarify the current reality of Delilah's oven. I spread the purchase agreement across the table, its official seal gleaming under the lights. This is the legal document transferring ownership to me, signed and notarized last February. Next comes the loan paperwork showing my personal liability for the bakery's debts. These are the financial obligations I assumed $68,000 in tax liens and equipment loans that were 2 months from foreclosure. Carson's confident smile falters as murmurs ripple through the assembled crowd. I lay out the profit and loss statements next, and these show our growth over the past year from nearly bankrupt to profitable in 12 months. Finally, I display before and after photos of the bakery. The before, peeling paint, outdated fixtures, empty display cases. The after, warm wood accents, full cases of innovative pastries, and the community bulletin board that has become a neighborhood gathering point. Everything you see today exists because of investments I made and risks I took when no one else would, I say, looking directly at Carson. He steps forward, interrupting with a dismissive wave. Look, no one's questioning that Sable kept things afloat, but let's be honest, she took advantage of our family's grief to grab Dad's legacy while I was building my career. The accusation hangs in the air for only a moment before Mrs. Farewell, who's bought her morning pastry here for 30 years, rises from her seat by the window. Young man, she says, her voice quavering with age but firm with conviction. I remember when this place had foreclosure notices on the door. Where were you then? Your sister mortgaged her future to save this bakery. Carson adjusts his tie, clearly thrown off script. With all due respect, ma'am, bakeries are businesses, not charities. Sable's pricing structure and menu changes show a lack of business acumen that... Marcus, my head baker, steps forward with his tablet. Actually, I prepared these figures for today's meeting. He turns the screen toward the group. Revenue has tripled under Sable's leadership. We've expanded from 7 bread varieties to 23 while maintaining quality. A rumble of approval moves through the room as Carson's face reddens. Where were you when the mixer broke last summer? Asks Eleanor from the back. Sable was here at midnight mixing dough by hand. Or, when the health inspector showed up unexpectedly, adds Walter, who delivers our flour. Sable had this place so clean he said it should be the standard for the county. Carson glances at our mother, who sits quietly in the corner, her expression unreadable. The bakery needed professional management, Carson insists, his voice rising. Dad always intended. Dad's intentions died with him. I interject quietly. What matters are actions, not intentions. Standing there with everyone watching, I wonder if I should offer Carson some role in the bakery as a peace offering, or if drawing a firm boundary is the only way to protect what I've built. What would you do? Extend an olive branch or stand your ground completely? The question hangs in my mind as Marcus speaks up again. When suppliers raised prices last winter, Sable worked 18-hour days for 3 months straight, he says, looking around the room. She slept on the office couch to avoid laying off a single person, including me, a new hire she barely knew. Eleanor nods vigorously. And she kept Dad's original cinnamon roll recipe exactly the same, while adding those wonderful gluten-free options some of us need now. She pats her stomach meaningfully. Didn't forget the regulars while welcoming new folks. Another customer chimes in. My daughter's wedding cake, remember how you stayed up all night redoing it after the refrigerator failed? Carson, were you there for that? With each story, Carson appears increasingly isolated, shifting his weight from foot to foot as his comeback attempts fall flat against the wall of community support. Mother finally stands, her discomfort visible in her tight shoulders and pinched expression. She glances between her children, clearly struggling with the mounting evidence contradicting the family narrative she's clung to. Carson checks his watch, his confidence visibly crumbling. This is ridiculous. I'll handle this legally, he announces, turning toward the door. Carson, wait. I call. The room quiets as he pauses. Please stay. We're having a special community breakfast this Sunday to celebrate the bakery's revival anniversary. I'd like you to be there. Quote. He stares at me, confusion replacing anger as he realizes I'm not gloating in his defeat. Everyone's welcome. I continue, addressing the room. To thank you all for believing in Delilah's oven when its future wasn't certain. As applause fills the bakery, I catch my mother's eye. For the first time since this began, she's looking at me, really looking with something that might be respect. The next day, the cinnamon rolls need 5 more minutes. I slide the tray into the warm oven and check my watch, 6:30. Carson and Mom should arrive soon for our compromise discussion. My stomach tightens at the thought. The bell above the front door jingles. I wipe my hands on my apron and step out from the kitchen to find them already seated at the corner table, a manila folder between them. Carson wears a pressed button-down with the sleeves rolled up to show his watch, Dad's watch. Mom fidgets with her wedding ring, eyes darting around the bakery before settling on me. Morning, Carson says, his voice smoothed into that professional tone he uses with clients. Thanks for meeting before opening. I nod, untying my apron. Coffee? Let's just get to business, Carson says, tapping the folder. We've drafted a reasonable compromise. Mom leans forward. We think this is best for everyone, honey. Carson slides the papers across the table. Bold type at the top reads, Transfer of partial ownership. I scan the first paragraph, heat rising in my chest. The document proposes I retain 40% ownership, while Carson assumes the role of business director with controlling interest. Your father would want you both involved, Mom says, her voice barely above a whisper. This family has suffered enough division. The stress of this situation isn't good for Mom. Carson adds, glancing at her with practiced concern. Think about how this looks to the community, Sable. The Harringtons at war over bread and pastries? I fold the papers and hand them back. No. No discussion? Not even for family peace? Mom's hand trembles as she reaches for mine. Please, Sable. My blood pressure can't take much more of this. The timer on my phone buzzes. Excuse me, I say, walking to the kitchen. As I pull the tray of perfectly golden cinnamon rolls from the oven, I hear the back door open. Marcus enters, followed by Eleanor and 2 other regular customers. Right on time. Morning, boss. Marcus says loud enough for Carson and Mom to hear. I return to the dining area, my small audience filing in behind me, Carson's eyes narrow at the unexpected company. I've considered your compromise, I say, placing my phone on the table. But before I respond, I think everyone should hear what you really plan to do with Delilah's oven. I tap the screen, and Carson's voice fills the quiet bakery. Once I get control from Sable, we'll move quickly. Heartland Bakery Group is offering 7 figures if we transition within 90 days. A pause, then Carson again. Of course we'll replace the staff. Their artisanal nonsense is charming but inefficient. The recipes will be standardized. It's just business. Carson lunges for my phone. You recorded me? That's playing dirty. Playing dirty? I laugh, the sound surprising even me. Was it playing dirty when you talked to my staff behind my back? When you changed the passwords? When you scheduled meetings with my vendors? You're betraying your family, Carson hisses. I didn't betray anything. I saved what you abandoned. I pull a folder from beneath the counter. Here are the 5 emails I sent you when Dad got sick. Here's the text message asking you to come home when the equipment started failing. Here's the voicemail transcript from when the tax lien notice arrived. Eleanor steps forward, her 75 years somehow making her more imposing as she peers over her glasses at Carson. I've been coming to this bakery since your grandfather opened it. Where were you when the lights almost went out for good? Carson looks to Mom for support, but her eyes are fixed on the papers in my hand. You never told me she tried to reach him, Mom says quietly. The morning sun breaks through the front windows, bathing the display cases in golden light as the first customers begin to gather outside. I unlock the door 10 minutes early, greeting familiar faces as they enter. The aroma of fresh cinnamon rolls fills the space. A woman in a tailored blazer approaches the counter. Sable Harrington? I'm Diane Fletcher, from the Asheville Business Journal. We're doing a feature on family businesses making remarkable turnarounds. Perfect timing, Carson says, smoothly inserting himself beside me. Carson Harrington, I've recently returned to help guide our family legacy. Oh? Diane opens her notebook. So you're co-owners? I slide my folder across the counter. Actually, I'm the sole owner. I purchased Delilah's oven last year when it was facing foreclosure. Diane pages through the documents, eyebrows rising. Impressive turnaround, tax liens, equipment failures, and now I hear you're one of the most profitable independent bakeries in the county. My sister has done some basic maintenance, Carson interjects, but the Harrington Bakery has always been. Where were you when the bakery had tax liens and failing equipment? Diane asks, pen poised. Carson's confident smile falters. I was pursuing other opportunities that broadened my business expertise. Sometimes distance provides perspective that... He was in Seattle, I say, working at a startup that failed 6 months ago. He hasn't set foot in this bakery until recently, when he texted me that he was taking over. Carson's face reddens. Family businesses are complicated. Sable is oversimplifying a nuanced situation. A young customer near the register holds up her phone, the video recording light blinking. Carson notices and straightens his shirt. Our readers would love to hear about your vision for the bakery's future, Diane says, turning to me. As I describe our plans for a small satellite location downtown, Carson backs toward the door, muttering about other appointments. Mom remains seated, watching me with an expression I can't quite read, something between surprise and recognition. Later that afternoon, Marcus shows me the video of Carson's fumbling explanation, already circulating among local business owners with the caption, Prodigal Son Returns, after sister saves family business. Heard he's packing up, Marcus says, sliding a fresh espresso across the counter to me. Rumor is he's heading back to Seattle tomorrow. I nod, surprised by the hollow feeling beneath my triumph. What about Mom? She ordered 2 loaves of sourdough for dinner, said she'd pick them up herself. After closing, I sort through Dad's old recipe books, searching for his original cinnamon roll instructions. A folded piece of paper slips from between the pages, Dad's familiar handwriting catching my eye. For Sable, the true heart of this bakery. The paper trembles in my hand. How long had this note been hidden here? Did Mom know? Had she seen it before I found the courage to save what everyone else had given up on? The scar on my palm throbs faintly as I trace Dad's words with my finger, wondering what other truths might still be waiting to be discovered. The next day, I stand at the front of Delilah's oven, facing 20 eager faces, clutching notepads and wearing aprons with our logo. Morning light streams through the windows, casting a golden glow across the workspace I've arranged for today's community baking workshop. The secret to our cinnamon rolls isn't just in the ingredients. I explain, my voice carrying confidently across the room. It's in respecting the dough. Give it time to develop structure and flavor. I need the demonstration batch with practiced movements, no longer second-guessing my technique. My father's recipe cards sit untouched on the counter. I know these methods by heart now, Mrs. Farewell raises her hand. You make it look so natural, Sable, like you were born to run this place. The comment warms me. 6 months ago, I would have deflected the praise or credited my father. Today, I simply nod. Thank you. I've put in the hours to make it look easy. My gaze drifts to my office door, where architectural plans for our second location hang prominently. The financing came through last week, proof that the bank sees what I've built as worthy of investment. As I guide the class through the rolling technique, I notice the scar on my palm has faded to a thin silver line. I run my thumb across it briefly, a physical reminder of how far I've come from that morning when Carson's text made me drop the tray. Later that afternoon, the bell above the door chimes. I look up from the register to find Carson standing awkwardly in the entrance, a small suitcase beside him. Heading out? I ask, wiping flour from my hands. He nods, glancing around at the renovated space. Seattle startup offered me a position. I leave tonight. I pour coffee into 2 mugs without asking if he wants any. Good luck with it. Carson accepts the cup, his eyes landing on the community bulletin board I've reinstalled, now filled with thank you notes and photos from local events we've supplied. You know, Dad probably would have been proud of what you've done here, he says finally. The words hang between us. 6 months ago, I would have grasped at this validation, treasured it like a rare gift. Now I simply sip my coffee. I know, I reply. After closing, Marcus and the staff linger, helping rearrange tables for tomorrow. Elena brings out a bottle of champagne while I place a tray of cinnamon rolls made from the original recipe in the center. To building something that lasts, Marcus says, raising his glass. We toast as laughter fills the space that once echoed with tense arguments and ultimatums. Marcus pulls a wrapped package from behind the counter and hands it to me. From all of us, he says. Inside is a framed photograph from my first day as owner, flour covering my worried face as I tackled a mountain of paperwork. The simple caption reads, "The Real Inheritance." Sunday morning arrives with a gentle rain. I'm sliding trays into the oven when the back door opens. My mother stands there, hesitant but determined. Need an extra pair of hands? She asks. I point to an apron on the hook. Timing's perfect. Morning rush starts in an hour. We work side by side, her movements tentative at first, as I show her the ordering system I developed. On the counter between us lie the architectural plans for the second location. Her eyes drift to them occasionally with something like pride. Your father always said you had the touch for this place, she says quietly, crimping pie edges with careful fingers. I should have remembered that. I don't respond immediately, focusing instead on sliding a fresh tray of cinnamon rolls into the oven with steady, confident hands. The scent of cinnamon and sugar fills the kitchen, as familiar as breathing. As I watch my mother finally working beside me as a partner rather than a doubter, I wonder if some relationships need to be completely broken before they can be rebuilt properly. What would you do? Forgive the past completely, or maintain healthy boundaries even with family who once betrayed you?